not exactly a noob, but it has been a few years since I've been on a super sport bike, so this ought to be fun. I'm Chris from AutoAcademics, and we are here with Kawasaki to ride the 2022 Kawasaki ZX-6R. Let me make this clear. While the ZX-6R is in the 600 class, it is not a beginner bike, but it is still a street bike, so let's get to the specs. My ride for the day is a 2022 Kawasaki ZX-6R KRT edition. KRT stands for Kawasaki Racing Team, and it comes standard with an adjustable 41mm inverted Showa big piston split function fork and an adjustable bottom link Unitrack gas charge shock out back. The 17-inch wheels are wrapped in 120/70 series up front and 180/55 series Bridgestone Battle Axe S22 tires in rear. A 4-piston Nissin brake clamps down on dual 310mm pedal discs up front, and a single piston squeezes a 220mm single disc setup in back, and both front and rear are equipped with ABS. The ZX-6R employs a liquid-cooled 636cc 4-stroke engine that is slightly larger than the competition. And while Kawasaki doesn't state this, it makes a reported 109.7 horsepower and 45.4 pound-feet of torque. The transmission is a close ratio 6-speed cassette style with chain drive, and adjustable traction control, power modes, and Kawasaki's quick shifter manage it all. Curb weight is 430 pounds wet, and this bike can carry up to 4.5 gallons, so there's a good chance you'll need to stop and stretch your legs before you need to stop for gas. Speaking of which, the riding position is expectedly cramped with your feet high up and rearward and your hands down low out front. On the plus side, the seat has a height of 32.7 inches, which is low enough and narrow enough for me to put my feet flat on the ground while stopped, and I'm of average height. During my ride, the first thing I had to get used to was the sensitivity of the controls. The throttle felt twitchy with an on-off responsiveness until I got used to it. The brakes were progressive with great pressure, but because of their strength, they too required some restraint around town. Bottom line, gentleness is your ally. Squeeze the brake lever too hard, as I did the first couple of times, and the suspension will compress, throwing your already forward body weight even more forward onto your palms. Again, all of this is coming from someone who has not been on this level of two-wheeled performance in many years. So yes, while the stock suspension setup was soft and impressively comfortable, I was able to minimize the front squat during braking as I got acclimated. And I'm sure a couple clicks of compression would help too, without messing up the ride quality. As you'd expect, power delivery was lovely. A benefit of the 636 is its slight advantage in the torque department. Instead of screaming down the road at 9 or 10,000 RPMs to stay in the power band, passing power was on call even in the higher gears at lower speeds, so there was no need to downshift, which is perfect for daily commuting. Thing is, I actually enjoyed working the gearbox. The shifts were smooth and precise, and there was no funny business going from first to second, yet neutral was easy enough to engage. But that wasn't the best of it. New to me was KQS, or Kawasaki's Quick Shifter. It allows you to perform clutchless upshifts, say that 10 times fast, with the throttle fully open. There are some systems that work with both up and down shifts, but this one is strictly for moving up the gears, and the way it works is the system detects that the shifter lever has been actuated and sends a signal to the ECU to cut ignition so that the next gear can be engaged without having to use the clutch. Similar to rev matching in current gen performance cars, it's a game changer and can make you feel like the doctor himself, just without all the race wheels. Now, it could make you lazy and possibly a worse rider on lesser bikes over time, but as with rev matching, you don't have to use it if you don't want to. That being said, when you do use the clutch, either for starting off or downshifting, you get a nicely weighted action that's light enough to mitigate fatigue, yet substantial enough for positive engagement. And if you happen to be a little ham-fisted with your downshifts, the slipper clutch will help prevent wheel hop and skidding, something you do not want when entering a curve. The gauge cluster incorporates a large analog tachometer front and center, as well as a digital display that shows speed, fuel level, temperature, power mode, and even a clock. And I didn't have any trouble seeing the information I needed in the late morning sun. While I didn't try any high-speed left-to-right transitions, the chassis felt stable. And even though the fairings and windscreen are minimal, Wind protection was decent, directing the wind over and around you, specifically when tucked in, with no unnecessary turbulence to my head, shoulders, or legs. The mirrors are sport bike small, but I had no problem seeing what was reflected over my shoulders. Thanks to the smoothness of the engine, everything behind me was impressively clear. The stock exhaust is relatively quiet, even when compared to other bikes in Kawasaki's lineup, so an aftermarket slip-on would definitely be on order if I owned one of these. As I start to wrap this video up, I admit that if I were 10, alright, let's be real, 20 years younger, this would make for a fantastic everyday bike. But that was back when I used to be able to do 2 to 2.5 hour stints at a time. And as I continue with my honesty, I was beginning to feel pressure on my palms by the time we finished our 20-minute demo ride.
My palms are tired already. Yeah.
I hadn't ridden a full-fledged sport bike in quite a few years, yet with all my anticipation and anxiety leading up to my ride, the 2022 Kawasaki ZX-6R renewed my confidence and turned out to be a sweet ride. No, it's still not for beginners, but if you got some legitimate riding experience, it should give you miles of enjoyment for under $12,000, even if my knees and palms say otherwise. Alright guys, that was a quick one, but I wanted to get a little more bike content out there for you, so when this opportunity came up, I jumped on it. So, as always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, don't forget to subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss what we have coming up next. I'm Chris from AutoAcademics. Thanks for watching.